We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And if you've been with us for, well, I guess we just restarted last week, but recently, you know that we've been really making some good progress on our Marvel Replay series, and we are almost completely caught up to where we ended or started our show and beginning to cover some of the new content coming out in 2021. We just did Far From Home last week, and now it is time to get into the Disney Plus shows that started Phase 4 in the resurgence of the MCU in 2021. That, of course, means we are kicking things off with WandaVision, but we're not going to cover all 9 episodes today because that would be insane. So we're just going to cover episodes 1 through 3. Highly recommend, if you haven't watched WandaVision in a hot minute, that you go back and watch it and then listen to our episode. You'll get way more out of it that way. And I've been talking for a really long time, so I'm going to let Katie take it away.
I don't think I've rewatched WandaVision truly since right before MOM.
I didn't even finish it before MOM.
Honestly, I don't remember if I finished it. Yeah, I think it was because one of my roommates, I think, at the time, because I was in college when MOM came out, hadn't seen WandaVision. And so I was like, oh my God, like, you have to watch it or you're not going to understand half of the movie we're about to go see in like a day. So ironically, like, WandaVision didn't actually impact MOM the way any of us thought it was going to. But we'll get to that by the final episode, I'm sure. I honestly, because I don't think I've watched it back in a really long time, I found myself really enjoying it. And obviously we only watched the first 3 episodes, but I do feel like a lot of the time we kind of all like, the first 2 episodes are kind of more boring, blah, blah, blah. But I have to say, having not seen it in a while, I was really into it again because I just didn't really remember a lot of what was going on. And it is more interesting going back because you do know how some of this plays out within the show. So you're looking a little bit more eagle-eyed than you were obviously the first time. I mean, Taylor and I watched it the first time together. It was COVID.
Yep.
So we were home, we watched it every week when it was coming out. That was a big thing. And then the very baby version of our podcast prior to actually recording started where we would like go debrief with our sometimes on guest host Davis, and we would discuss, what we were thinking about it. And obviously this was when Stan Twitter was actually still relevant because it was Twitter and people were talking about it and this was the hype. And like rewatching it, I was like, no, like I have nostalgia for this, but also like this show so far holds up in my opinion.
I times a million everything you just said. I mean, I too, like, I think the biggest thing coming away from these first 3 episodes, and we'll actually get into the episode in a second, but like from a pure reaction standpoint, was I just kept thinking about, oh my gosh, I remember what it was like to watch these. Like, we didn't have much else going on. It's early 2021. You could leave your house a little bit, but like not really. And so this was like the highlight of everything, right? And like this is what I look forward to on a Friday night, is sitting down and watching WandaVision and then going to talk about it after. And I think one of the things that also was kind of surprising that struck me was listening to the fanfare, which I've
Yeah.
heard 1,000 times since, because like, they have it at the beginning of every movie and TV show, but for some reason in the mindset of I'm about to watch WandaVision, I was like transported back in time to being like, "Oh my god, it's been so long since I've heard this fanfare."
It's so weird because I felt the exact same way, and I was like, "Why am I reacting this way?" Like, it's not as if I didn't just one rewatch plenty of the other movies that had the fanfare, but two, like we've been in theaters, we've been watching the shows as they've been coming out. Like, also has the fanfare, and I
We
was like,
just watched Far From Home last week.
"That's what I'm saying." Like, hello,
Yeah.
and so I mean, wait, did Far From Home have the fanfare though? I
Oh,
don't think it
maybe not.
does.
Oh, you're right.
No.
It is the
But I'm
silent.
thinking of
Yeah.
like Endgame. Well, I don't even think of it. Well, Endgame did. Infinity War didn't.
Opposite, I think.
Oh no,
No,
Infinity War starts with the Ragnarok
you're
call.
right. But isn't Endgame also silent?
So maybe we're lying to y'all. I'm
But
not really
still,
sure.
I mean,
But
like,
we've
we
watched it
watched.
recently. Like
Yeah.
Fantastic Four. Like
Yeah.
I saw that twice in theaters. Stuff like that. Like we've heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, for whatever reason, that absolutely was. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like, we're back. We're so back. Like, so ready. And it was just like a total, like, time warp moment. Take me back in time. But I think, diving into a little bit into episode one, what I love about these first, especially the first 3 episodes, I know four and I think five even still kind of go on the like decade by decade pattern, but these first three especially are so different, right? Like the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s are so markedly different in the way that they are styled and the way that they speak than what we know today, like in the 80s and 90s focused episodes, because those are so much closer, right? And so it was so fun to see how well they paid homage to these very specific, very particular eras of television, and how, all of that evolved, and being able to watch that not on a week by week basis, but just sit down and watch them go through 3 different decades was like so much fun. And I think, nothing that they've done since, this is going to be maybe a hot take, nothing that they've done since has been this creative.
It's so funny you just said that though, because I was low key gonna say the same thing. I actually think since we just recently got the Wonder Man trailer, I actually have to say that is probably to me one of the closest we're getting to going out of the box. I
Yeah.
think Eternals did, and it got completely shat on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I loved Eternals. I'm not gonna ever talk badly about it, but I know it wasn't received well. And I think it was a very different direction for Marvel than a lot of what we've seen. So I would say maybe Wonder Man looks like it's trying to touch that aspect as well, but I would argue the exact same thing.
Yeah, maybe Fantastic Four too, because it's so specifically set in a certain era. I think is the closest they've come since WandaVision to being able to do something that is so wildly a departure from like what we know today, right? And they didn't just say like we're gonna continue Wanda's story in this show. No, we're gonna tell her story through homage and stylistic choices dedicated to different decades, and I think that is so smart. And then they absolutely were able to then flip that switch at the end of the series or those last few episodes to be able to just plot and like actually move her forward as a character. But I think these first few episodes are so special because they are so stylistically different and distinct, and really stand apart from everything that the MCU has done, even the period pieces. Like Captain America isn't styled like this.
Yeah.
Yet, you have WandaVision set, and I'm using air quotes, in the 50s that looks like it's in the 50s.
Yeah. I also think the first couple episodes, what I didn't remember about them, especially the first two, because like I said, those are the ones that even when you talk to most people now, they'll be like, you can for the most part skip those. Watching them back now, I was like, no, you can't. I don't think I remember the Easter eggs the way I do, and they're not really Easter eggs. That's a poor choice of words. The just general hints of what the plot actually is, and even the first two episodes.
Yeah.
Because just a reminder for people, whether you were there when this happened and you remember it, or forgot it and we're reminding you, or you were not part of the fandom necessarily watching WandaVision when it came out. The first two episodes did drop together, and then from that point it was episode by episode. So I think that's why the first two get lumped together and kind of thrown out. But when I was watching them, I was like, I don't remember the amount of like, hey, something's wrong here in these episodes the way I'm watching it now and realizing like something's strange. But also knowing how this turns out, like I'm thinking even specifically the dinner table scene with Mrs. and Mr. Hart.
Yeah.
It's so much more eerie knowing exactly what Wanda was doing during that entire time. And I think knowing it and now really picking up on it, but also just like the whole aspect of when they first thought it was Wanda being trapped in there. And I forgot that entire aspect as well. And obviously, up until, I mean, we know there are some crazy things happening by the end of episode 3, but we still are kind of thinking like, is like, what's going on? Somebody's trying to rescue Wanda. There's an agency out there. Like, we get that revealed to us. And like, I forgot this whole aspect, but the hints towards the people being like, stop what you're doing. You're doing too much. Like, let us go. We think you're gonna inflict us pain. Like the character breaks
Yeah.
that like before you don't understand when you're watching it the first time because you don't know where this is going. But now knowing not only how it pans out, but like I was thinking a lot about Agatha all along and the things that were revealed to us in that show
Yeah.
about Westview and the things of that nature as well, because we revisit it. Let's not forget Agatha wakes up in the spell in Westview.
Yeah.
So I think learning all that, and obviously we also learned the Witch's Road is like low-key Billy's own version of kind of the hex, and we see generationally it all comes together. But I do think having seen so much built off of this story, it actually kind of makes me sad we don't yet have Vision Quest, because I would almost like to really see how they all fold into each other now watching it back and knowing so much, because I really do think you just pick up on it so differently and it's almost more eerie because you know how bad it is.
Yeah. And like it's so interesting too because in these early episodes Wanda has duped herself. Like she's not aware of what she's doing.
Yeah. It's not until she has the twins that you kind of start to be like, oh.
Well, basically the end of episode 3
Exactly.
when she, removes Geraldine aka Monica from the hex and she's like, "You're not sticking to the script. Get out." Like cut, you're gone.
Yeah.
It's not until then that you're like, "Oh, she's aware now." Whereas like especially that first episode, you mentioned the dinner with Mr. and Mrs. Hart where she just keeps saying, "Stop it. Stop it. Stop it." And you see Wanda have her first character break where she's like, "Vision, save him." And Vision immediately gets up. And not just because his wife is telling him to go save Mr. Hart, it's because well, first of all, he's like a figment of her development of reality, but also she controls everyone in there. And so that's a whole other layer.
You know what's really interesting, and I would not have, and you know what, guys? I'm sure plenty of you guys have put this together. I didn't put it together the first time, nor the second, and probably the third time I watched the show. This whole time, Vision has acted as her moral compass.
Yeah.
And the thing is one could be like, no, duh, that's Vision's job. But no, literally because she had to recreate him out of her mind, she put her moral compass in Vision.
Yeah.
So there is a part of Wanda that is, because when we find out at the end, I'm trying not to jump too ahead, but like it is important to kind of tell the bigger story within these smaller episodes to also be able to pull out some of the things we're seeing. But like we obviously see like her powers get the best of her between her emotions and everything. She unleashes. She doesn't mean to create the hex initially. Obviously, she becomes aware. She's happy in it. She built the family she always wanted. But the version of Vision that she built is the part of her that's a good person and the moral compass that's like, hey, you're doing something here, girly. It's like she literally splits in two, yes, but it's like she splits herself in two. And
Yeah.
that's what she gives Vision. And so for us, we're like, yeah, Vision's like, that's how he normally is. And obviously we learn by the end, like he doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually exist. That is literally the good part of Wanda fighting to be like, this isn't right. You need to fix this. Whatever you're doing, you need to stop. And it is kind of interesting as we watch her gear up, she's fighting against that.
Yeah.
Because we even see that in episode 3. We're seeing Vision become more aware, which again is the other side of Wanda that's like, hold on, what am I doing here? Like, what is happening here? And then we see how Vision questions it, and Wanda's like, no. The dark side of Wanda that wants to fight against it is like, we're not doing that because I'm happy. I'm good with this.
You're right. It's her two sides. It's Wanda Maximoff and the side of Wanda that becomes the Scarlet Witch.
It's the version of her that sided originally with Hydra.
Yeah, it's her, more morally gray half
Yeah.
for sure that can be persuaded into, or, persuaded by things like the Darkhold. Let's just say that, it's a little more susceptible to some questionable suggestions. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another reason we see, obviously, she's going as Agnes. We know it's Agatha. Kind of not really, like, she's playing into it, but only the way that she needs to push Vision the way she has to. Because to a degree, she needs Wanda to wake up. She can't completely have her in this, like, spell that she's created for herself in order to sap her power, which is what we learn by the end of all of this. But it is interesting because I found that conversation really interesting when she was talking about Monica, because the threat of Monica was real and she had to get her removed. But at the same time, she had to have Wanda, because again, Vision is essentially an extended version of Wanda here. She had to get her to start understanding, like, there are people here. This isn't just the town. But so you either remove her or people are entering your town now. People are starting to play into your story. Like, things are starting to come apart. It's just all very, like, it's much more meta when you actually do understand people's intentions.
Yeah, and I think what's cool too is to like watch back and see how observant Vision is even in episode 1. He's like, "Wait, we don't have an anniversary. We don't have any of these things." And like and part of that is still Wanda very much in her own spell. Like she doesn't have those things either, those memories, those, foundational elements to their relationship. But you're right, as the episodes move forward, as, just holding true to 1 through 3, he starts to question her more and more to the point where she literally has to like, and I'm using air quotes again, like rewind the tape. Like, oh no, 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 no. You're not gonna question this reality that I've built for us. We're just gonna go about our happy little lives and everything's gonna be great. And so it's very fun to like be able to pick up on these elements of characters not acting to what Wanda wants them to do, and also interacting with things from the outside world, right? Like when we hear the thing on the radio, it like snaps Dottie out when they're saying, "Wanda, where are you?" And Dottie seems to become aware. She comes out of the spell a little bit, and you can see there's like this new sense of awareness in her eyes, right? It's not just I'm Dottie and I'm president of the PTA or whatever. It's I have a whole other life and personality and like all of these things that are not this character that you've made me. And so that's really cool to watch because I know that was not, we were not putting those pieces together, especially the first time.
Well, and it's interesting because we see it with Geraldine slash Monica as well.
Yeah.
And she is in the Hex, and she's not just playing a part. She gets absorbed into the story the same way everybody else who lives in that town does. But we also see the moment she snaps out of it. And then problem for her is she can't get back in because she wasn't there to begin with. She
Yeah.
wasn't an initial part of the spell. And that's why we kind of see her blubbering around and struggling and everything. And then obviously we don't actually know yet what happens to her fully, other than she ends up outside of the Hex. Obviously, having seen the show, we do know how she ends up outside of the Hex, but it is very interesting because you do see the things that are snapping them out. But again, she wasn't part of the original spell. It's not as powerful on her the way that it was on the people who it was initially put on. And that's why for Dottie, she can kind of, to your point, get back to the script, if you will, when things go back to normal, or the outside factor that's changing the script goes away. They're all able to snap back in. Because I mean, even look at like the whole thing with Herb when he's like cutting what's supposed to be a concrete wall, and even Vision's like, what is happening
Yeah.
over there? And I do think like it's so intriguing. And again, like I just keep thinking of Agatha all along and revisiting some of these characters in that first episode, and just like the PTSD and like the trauma, like just knowing how this all plays out is really intense.
Yeah. And I think that situation with Herb is such a good foreshadowing moment to like later episodes where we see exactly where Wanda's like power reaches its limits,
Yeah.
because she's basically like this walking center of power, right? Wherever she is, the spell is the strongest, which makes a lot of sense. But then, in later episodes, we get to the outskirts of the city and you see people just like literally like doing the same motion over and over again because
Yeah.
they're in the spell enough that they can't actually think for themselves and act for themselves, but they also are not in it enough where she basically has them on autopilot. She's like, I can't be expending my energy that far out to be making sure that these people are living, full lives. Instead, I'm just going to basically, keep them there until I'm in that area, and then I can like essentially turn on the switch and
Yeah.
animate them and have them go about their lives.
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting, and the way that we see it, just the small hints. I mean, I mentioned the one with Mr. and Mrs. Hart, and I think that's really the big one we get in that first episode. That's like, ooh, something weird is happening here. I feel like that's really the like slap in the face. But then like in episode 2, obviously having watched it, we know about the beekeeper.
Yeah.
We know about the little toy airplane. We understand now what that is, but I think even just those little hints, the Wanda, are you there on the radio? And I actually didn't remember this, but I think it was the end of the first episode when they pan out and they see it on the TV screen.
I
And I
forgot
was
until
like,
we saw that.
yeah, and I was like, this is why I'm finding so much more joy in these first 2 episodes, because I was like, I don't remember so much of these hints
Yeah.
the way that they're coming at us. But it's, to me, not until the 3rd episode that I think we see the first break.
Yeah.
Like, I think we genuinely, and I don't even mean like the glaringly obvious, like she resets the screen and everything kind of break. I mean, even down to the situation with Geraldine and how that's handled. I mean, you see Wanda, and I love that girl, I do, but she's terrifying when she
Yes.
locks in.
Yeah.
And you see her lock in, she does her head tilt, which is always like, I should run the other way because I'm
Trouble
about
is
to like,
coming.
yeah, I'm about to die, essentially. And I just found myself sitting there, and like her nonchalantness when she's like over the babies when Vision comes in and he's like, "Where's Geraldine?" And she's like, "Oh, she had to go." Like, I actually was like, I'm more scared of this version of you right now than I was of MOM version of Wanda, because
Yeah.
that was terrifying.
Yeah. It's the way that she goes from I'm happy and I'm living in my essential fantasy, and now I've come to realize this is a fantasy and I will do whatever it takes to stay here. And it's
Exactly.
like, "Ooh, she's awake and the beast is moving and she's going to do whatever it takes."
Yeah. Cuz I definitely think kind of what you said before, the first episode and even the second, she's definitely noticing things, and she's like, things are weird. And it's also so meta because they're like, they still have their powers. He's obviously still a microwave. And I think it's strange because like we actively are talking about that. Like, they're talking about, oh, we're normal, but we have to hide this, and like all that, all these factors, right? That like take you out of the bigger story. I actually think in it's, and not in a bad way, because that it plays into the plot, but I actually think it would have been very interesting if we never had that and we just had them doing their powers without the whole like stress of people finding out, or like, we're different, we have to hide it. Like, I kind of think that would have been a very interesting take to understand how that would have played into the bigger plot. But I do think episode 3, I think you said it perfectly. She becomes fully aware. And it's because I think the other side of her, Vision, is he's not fully aware, but he also is realizing far too deeply something's weird.
Yeah.
Like, way too weird out here, that it's not making sense anymore. And I think that is part of that as well. Is it's like, it's breaking. We're seeing it break slightly, just a little bit. It's actually kind of interesting because I think we do have 2 more episodes of more period pieces, and
Yeah.
obviously there are breaks within that as well, but I'm kind of intrigued she keeps it up that far.
Yeah. It is so like cuz this third episode really feels like a turning point, right? And I think you can really say this third episode is the moment where Wanda goes from I am a hero and I just accidentally did something and I lost control of my powers to I am actively the villain, right? She was subconsciously controlling these people the first 2 episodes, two and a half maybe. By the end of 3, she's like, "I am fully aware of what I'm doing, and I am making an active choice to keep this up and to whatever I did here." I don't think she knows piece by piece exactly what she did and how she did it, but she knows that she is doing something to create this scenario, and she does not care.
I wouldn't say yet she's the villain, but I do think she's consciously aware, and I think she goes into self preservation mode because this is a woman who, at this point, has lost just about everything that she's ever held dear to her. And she's gotten a life she never, ever would have had in reality. I mean, again, like he's a microwave. So even if he lived, like, they wouldn't have had biological children at any given point. They probably never would have been able to live a normal life. She is the Scarlet Witch. He is Earth's most, what is it? Earth's mightiest defender or whatever. I should know because Cap says it 17 times that they lost Earth's mightiest defender. And I'm like, then fix him. And we would have been fine. My soapbox from the Infinity War episodes. But I truly don't like, they never would have lived this life. They never would have had any normalcy. And so I think it's not villain Wanda because we do see by the end she does the right thing and she's like slapped in the face with it.
Yeah,
But I
fair.
do think it's not that she's aware she's holding people hostage, but she is fully aware that she is controlling whatever is happening here. And she has the ability to control it. The selfish part of Wanda is taking control at this point. And that's the part that's like, whatever it is, I don't understand it, but because I can control it and it's working in my favor, I'm not letting somebody threaten this. This is the life I always wanted. Obviously, we see very quickly how that would become. Actually, honestly, the villain route to me was more clear at the very start of this show than how they ended up ending the show. And
I agree.
maybe my 2 cents will change when we end the show itself in our replay. But I think if they would have just gone full tilt, like she stayed villainous, because I think that's where a lot of that whiplash came in then with MOM.
Well, yeah, because then you did the whole Darkhold piece off screen. And so, like, it's almost like this episode 3 starts her descent of, like, I am fully in this. I am invested in keeping this the way I want it to be, and I'm going to control freak the heck out of this entire town.
Literally.
As a fellow control freak, honestly, there's a part of me that's like, you know what? I get it. No, that's not true. This is insane. But she's, fully invested in that route and keeping this the status quo. And you're right. We will get to this, I'm sure, in later episodes. But she does then realize the error of her ways, and she realizes she has to then make the sacrifice her family and all of that. And one can say, I guess, like that just irreparably damages what was left of her emotional capabilities. I get it. Like you just watched your husband die a second time. Now you had to kill your own children. Like that's a lot for any person. Then you add on to all the things she's already lost. The first time her husband died, her brother, the whole nine. So I get it. I get it. I do. But it really is then like, okay, I've made the right decision. And now I'm going to go pick up this dark hold that has a notorious reputation of taking people's worst desires and giving them, but in return for their soul. So like we know what the cost is of the dark hold, which is fine, but you did that off screen. So we go from I'm Wanda who just made the right decision, and now I have this tool that is not good and has this reputation, but you're not going to actually see me slide down the hill. I'm just going to be at the bottom of the pit the next time you see me.
Well, I actually think there could have been a lot of value in having her have the dark hold from the start.
Oh, agree. I agree.
After having seen like these 3 episodes again, especially episode 3, I forgot how creepy she could be.
I know. She's like scary.
She is like genuinely scary, and like love her, but she scares me a little bit. And I think if we would have had the reveal that she'd been holding the dark hold and that's what kind of caused this, rather than I don't know how it started, but more so that she was messing around with the dark hold, she got a hold of it. And honestly, I don't even need a full explanation of how she got a hold of it. I would have been like, that's fine. But she like was messing around with it, accidentally, still making an accident that she cast the hex.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't need to have been on purpose. But instead of having it been, she was so emotional, she like let out all of this chaos magic. It would have actually been interesting to me to kind of see how she got a hold of it, accidentally did this still, but it's still continuing to corrupt her as she's now going into protection mode of the spell she cast. And then I think you have Agatha come in actually with the aspect of she wants the Darkhold back from her.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you play her into that story. Because I do actually think now that, again, we're watching this back, I think that not horror element, but that definite like Wanda's messing around with something here and like she's getting scary with it was there from the start.
Yeah. More so than I ever remembered.
Same. And honestly, though, she made me feel that way in episode 1 with the way she was reacting to Mr. Hart choking and the like, stop it, of Mrs. Hart. Her face,
It's when she gets that like very dead look in her eyes, and you're like,
yes,
there is no soul behind, like, there is no empathy, no feeling. She is just in absolute like robot go mode. She's
yes.
like, I have an objective. It is keeping this, fantasy alive, and I don't care what it takes. I will tell anyone to do anything to keep it.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I actually kind of think the value of having the Darkhold already in her possession and having this actually be more connected to the Darkhold is there more than having her come out, quote unquote, the hero of this show. Because I don't think knowing where she was set up then for MOM, that makes sense. I think the first 3 episodes pin her very quickly as not a perpetrator because we don't know that still
Yeah.
because we do have the things like on the radio and stuff like that that are like, Wanda, who's doing this to you, and things like that. So I wouldn't say it paints her like clearly, but she'd be a suspect, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we're sitting here trying to solve a crime, like, she's high on our list of a suspect. We don't have proof, but we have like weird behavior. It's like that gut feeling of like that guy's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like he just gives me a weird vibe. Let's keep an eye on him. That's how she is in the first 3 episodes. And so I am kind of intrigued to see how my feelings pan out as we continue to watch the episodes because I do think rewatching these 3, I think there should have been a little bit of a switch in how the plot laid out. Not even just for how she went in MOM, but just like the whole Darkhold storyline. I think they actually focused too much on the Agatha reveal, and because of that, I think that made the plot kind of fall.
Yeah, I agree. I also think like I do want to bring MOM into it a little bit. I don't want to go too far because I know we'll definitely get into this in the later episodes, but I would rather this show as a whole be about her descent and a clear descent so that we have essentially a ramp into her absolutely abysmal moral behavior in MOM versus to what you were saying, they went out of their way to redeem her and make her the hero again, only for all of her descent to happen off screen. And then you're like, what the heck is this? And who is this character? Because it's not the character I just watched sacrifice her entire family. And I think it's important to bring that up now, even though, again, we'll talk about it way more in later episodes, because these 3 episodes actually set that up really well. Exactly what you were saying. Those hints of like scary Wanda, those hints of the Wanda that truly becomes the Scarlet Witch, those seeds were planted in the first 3 episodes. Not something I was picking up on any of my rewatches ever until right now. And I'm like, dang, they were pitting her as the villain this entire time. Whether she knew she was the villain or not, what level of consciousness that varies across the episodes. But one thing is for certain, when she gets that look in her eyes, you know that she is manipulating this scenario, that she is in control, and that she is very much focused on her goal. And that's when she is the scariest. I mean, we saw that woman singularly focus on a goal in MOM and she just killed people left and right. Like, there was just no breaks. So, that I think watching this back now really stands out to me because I never thought about it before in this way. But, like, narratively, just the ups and downs with her, I think we would have had a better. I think we would have had a better experience if we had just continued. It could have been a gradual slope down, and then she got the Darkhold, and then it was boop off a cliff, but like the ups and downs I think are where things get a little challenging.
Yeah, I agree because I do think these first 3 episodes, watching it back with the knowledge we have, I think they do really paint her as the bad guy. I mean, she is.
Yeah.
Accident or not, like she's doing this, but I think what is so strange is they do seem to have her redeeming herself, even though, and again, we're going to be watching the next bulk of episodes, like, we're gonna be covering it more in depth, but even from what I remember, like, I know at one point she leaves the hex and goes to Sword and is like, "Back up."
Yes. I actually almost thought this happened at the end of season 3 after or episode 3 after she
I think
removed
it's either the
Geraldine.
next one or it's the one right after that.
Yeah. And she comes out in the full leathers too.
Yes. Well, that's my point. And so, like, I think it's those moments where you're like, it does make the whole, like, how'd she redeem herself part a little hard?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even what she just did with Geraldine, like, first off, in the nicest of ways, girl, you broke her out of the spell because you brought up your brother.
Yeah.
And now, granted, to a stranger in the town of Westview who probably don't know what happened in Sokovia, however many years ago at this point this was, probably would, like, they in their little mind script that she's given them, probably isn't ever going to sit there and be like, huh.
No alarm bells.
Yeah, obviously you have somebody who's well versed in who you are and knows that that's a trigger word. So when you bring up Pietro and then you also start singing in Sokovian, that's a trigger.
Yeah.
Regardless, you broke her out of the spell and then you were like, "Who are you?" And then, you blast her through walls, which we didn't actually see in this episode. We find out that happens, later on. But that's how she enters or exits the hex. And so I do think it's very interesting to see this break in Wanda because it's not how the show ends,
Yeah.
but it's how she's painted. And I do think when you watch it the first time, because you're so worried about these other weird things. I mean, like, I remember being caught up in the, like, Wanda who's doing this to you, that I think even through her weird actions, I wasn't thinking she was doing it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because episode 3 is when she goes from a passive participant to what's happening to an active participant.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, if you're watching it the first time, you don't necessarily recognize that she went from active to passive because you don't have the hindsight of what's going to happen in the subsequent episodes. So it's harder to like recognize that moment of pivoting, right? Where
Yeah.
she takes a different role. But then coming back to it and looking at it in the trajectory of the full series, you're like, this is the moment where she has made a decision. She is not acting out, these scenes. She's not acting out this life. She has made an active decision to keep this going, and woe be anyone who gets in her way.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to see the jump from 2 to 3 as well, because I think we're just kind of moving along, and then it really is the last, like, I'd say 10 minutes of episode 3 that you really start to be like, wait, because you have that weird conversation with Vision, with Agnes and Herb, and then, we're at the same exact time we're having Wanda have that interaction with Geraldine after we're just seeing like this upbeaty kind of episode. She's pregnant, she like is pregnant for 2 days and then pops out 2 twins. Like, I mean, Geraldine literally helps her deliver her children.
Yeah.
And then, like, things change so quickly. And again, you also have that moment where Vision's questioning and she resets it.
Yeah.
And she's like, everything's fine. What do you mean? But it's a very interesting balance. And I do have to say, they do a great job. And I'm excited to watch, like, the next 2 episodes to kind of see how this continues to play out. Obviously, we know, but it's just, this is the type of show that I'm like, there's a lot of value in rewatching this.
I agree.
And not because of Wanda per se, but because it's the type of show that's messing with your mind enough that you're seeing different things every single time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like we've talked a lot about that kind of transition from episode 2 to 3, but I think what's even cooler is the way that they transition within episodes so that they're giving you like those last maybe 5 to 10 minutes of every episode are, well, the first one is actually only like 2 minutes, but like those last couple minutes are giving you hints at just how sinister this truly is, right? It's such a tonal dissonance because if you think about the first episode, right? Everything's so hunky dory, everything is great. And then you get the reveal that, oh my God, we're watching this happen on television. Oh, that's a little creepy. Like, that's weird. Episode 2, right? Everything is great. They have their little magic show. Then they go outside. The beekeeper shows up, right? And it's meant to be a genuine horror experience, not in that it's like gory or violent or anything like that, but you're meant to get,
No, like a Hitchcock.
Yeah, like you're meant to get that kind of thriller, like, ooh, my skin is prickly a little bit, like I've got this sense of unease.
Yeah.
And she just says it's when she puts on the face and she says, nope, and suddenly everything's fine. And you're like, oh, okay. And then to what you were saying, in episode 3, now there's a whole reset in the middle of the episode. So now we're moving from just giving these hints at the end of the episode to, oh, it's permeating further and further into the earlier parts of the episode. And then you have a much larger chunk at the end where Wanda is going full scary and she is showing that there are things that are not quite right about this, that aren't just like, why can't we remember our anniversary? Like, no, there is something nefarious here. And then for the first time, other than in episode 1 when we see someone watching the television, we see what's truly outside the hex.
Yeah.
So it's like this gradual movement of hints that get bigger and bigger and bigger as the episodes go on, to the point where you can no longer deny that Wanda, she's not a victim here. She is very much both consciously or unconsciously and then consciously the perpetrator.
Well, and that last line feeds directly into what I kind of said was, Wanda herself is becoming conscious, fully conscious.
Yeah.
And then the unconscious part is represented by Vision, who's also starting to become a little bit more conscious, but nowhere near, like, he just knows things are wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really showing yet she's the one behind it. I do think this show is just so well done. I the first 3 episodes I can truly gush about, because I think you just made such a great point with, like, oh, this is so fun. Like, I love this. And then it's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, even the thing with Dottie with the, like, her weird comments, and then, like, the glass breaking and the blood being in color and, like, things like that. Like, it's like, oh, that's strange.
But let's
And
get
then we
back
just
to
go
our
back.
regular. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we just go right back to normal. It's like, okay, sure. And then that just kind of keeps happening. And so it is very interesting. It's such an interesting way to do a show, because you can't anticipate any of it. You really can't.
Yeah, because there's no real pattern, right? I mean, like, yes, you're going to get a little hint at the end of the episode, and that's pretty much established by the end of 3. But, like, other than that, it's like, why are some things in color and other things aren't? Well, guess what? Dottie's from the 21st century, so of course her blood is going to be in color, right? And so it's like, that's why the airplane was in color. Just certain things where you're like, oh, I'm starting to see patterns later on, but at the time it's like, there's everything seems so random as you're going through it the first time, that it's hard to look at it and say, oh, I'm starting to see certain things. And then obviously hindsight's 2020 and you're like, oh my gosh, that is such good foreshadowing. But that first time through, there's no way.
Well, it's such a good watch to begin with, but it's a good rewatch for that other reason that you just said. Because you wouldn't get any of this watching it the first time, because you physically can't. And it's not like a crime show where you can kind of guess where things are going, because whether you want to be like, oh, well, Wanda did it or not, you still don't know where things are going to go.
Yeah.
We don't know how this all unfolds. I mean, Agnes being Agatha Harkness, and which was kind of but like how that came to fruition and things like that. Like,
let's not forget, this is where the beginning of the Mephisto mythos in the fandom starts.
I was gonna say that next. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I remember the rabbit holes. I mean,
I know.
we won't even get to
It's
this.
the Fly.
I was gonna say the Fly. I was like, we'll talk about the Fly, I'm sure, when we reach that episode. But like, it was a Senior Scratchy too. There was the theory that the bunny was Mephisto. I just think, like, that's what I mean. Like, this is what was going on, because it's so hard to pinpoint when you're watching this. So that's what makes it such a valuable rewatch, is having the extra knowledge lets you really dive into it and be like, oh,
like,
that's
I see
why
what you're doing there.
Yeah, and you can, like, it's genuinely fun knowing the ending in this case.
I agree. It's almost like, let's reverse engineer the puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like I've talked about all the things that I wanted to chat about for episodes 1 through 3. Obviously, we're going to continue this replay. There's no more Wonder Man this year. That got moved. So we'll be doing replays probably through the end of the year if we have enough weeks and episodes. I don't know. Math is hard. But stay with us if you're looking forward to more of our Marvel replay series. You can also check out our website and our Buy Me a Coffee, which are both linked below.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, also linked in the show notes below. And we will be back next week as we cover WandaVision episodes 4 and 5. So if you guys are trying to keep up with us, those are the two we will be watching. So make sure you guys are watching them as well in preparation. And we will see you guys next week as Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.